Shout out to Relentless Game.
Yes, sir. You already know it.
Did you realize that you were a champion?
What's good, you guys? You know who it is, man. It's your boy, Mr. Relentless Lex, and I'm back. Like I never left this mother. Yes, sir. All right, so today's video, you guys. Well, the second video for today is called The Moment Oprah Was Exposed as a Monster. Now, this video is from the channel Moon. The link to the original video will be inside the description if you guys want to check it out. It's 29 minutes long, so it's going to be pretty lengthy, pretty lengthy. So I'm not going to pause this much. I may give some commentary towards the end, unless something catches my attention that's drastic. Let's get it.
Ask anyone what Oprah is and you'll get a lot of different answers. Some people think of the talk show host who came from nothing, built everything and spent decades being the most trusted voice in America. Others think of something bigger, the entire Oprah brand, a business empire worth billions spanning television, publishing, film, real estate, and an entire media network built around a single name. Either way, she's the most successful entertainer of her entire generation. And yet, if you try to pin down exactly what her talent is, the answer is very elusive. But this misses the point, because one thing she did do very well was manage risk, protect the image, and never let red flags get in the way of a profitable deal. She's always close enough to benefit from each controversy, but never close enough to be held culpable. And it was usually those who desperately needed protection who paid the dearest price when the person and the business merged into the same entity. And nobody would learn this harder than one of Oprah's closest friends, Monique. Monique had previously confided in her about some of the most painful parts of her life, that she and her mother were no longer speaking and that her brother had molested her as a child. Oprah quickly booked both Monique's abusive brother and her estranged mother for the upcoming show, using their accounts to dig deeper into the trauma, dragging the entire situation into the spotlight.
She said my brother wanted to come on the show. She said, if you don't want me to have your brother on the show, I will cancel the show.
On the surface, that sounds like Oprah was giving Monique a choice, but what happened next would tell a very different story.
I began to see commercials with my brother, my mother, my father, and my other brother.
That's despite Monique making it crystal clear she wanted nothing to do with the pair, stating,
my brother Gerald is a charmer. I said I don't want nothing to do with that cat.
And that this is everything she didn't want.
She never said my mother was coming on that show, because had Oprah Winfrey said, I'm gonna have your mother, I would have said, shut it down. I shared with her that me and my mother was not talking. I shared with her, I was hurt.
Still, the interview went ahead, and Monique found out the same way everyone else did, by watching it live on television. On stage, her brother finally admitted what he had done, saying,
I did assault inappropriately, touched my sister in manners that were not comfortable for her.
But even that wasn't enough to stop the family from defending him. Monique's mother brushed off parts of the story on air, protecting the abuser, whilst her other brother suggested that the essay was blown out of proportion. Meanwhile, Oprah, the woman who had positioned herself as an advocate for victims, leaned in and drilled into the details, milking every moment for the camera and money. This is what makes Monique's story so ugly. Oprah wasn't exposing a hidden abuser on behalf of a victim. She was reopening a victim's trauma in public, on terms the victim says she never consented to. But the worst part of this is arguably what followed next. Monique says that after speaking out about the situation, Oprah used her influence in Hollywood to help freeze her out of the industry. Roles that she says were once offered to her, including parts in The Butler, Empire, and a planned Richard Pryor biopic, disappeared while her name increasingly attached to the label of being difficult. Looking at where Monique's career is today compared to where it was when she appeared with Oprah, it's hard to argue that speaking out came without consequences. And others seem to be on the receiving end of this tactic too. Susan Powter recalled after declining an Oprah appearance, her team warned her, quote, "You do know that you may never work in this town again." In fact, it became a rarity to speak out against her, like when Prince quipped her for asking why he was weird and why he lived in Minneapolis.
It's so cold, it keeps the bad people out.
It's the way he looks her right in the eye when he says it. But Monique wasn't an exception. This kind of drama extraction technique was the foundation Oprah's show was built on. In return for using it to platform yourself, celebrities were expected to surrender a compromising story. Whether this was a confession, breakdown, or secret they spent years protecting, everything was on the table. No celebrity wanted to be the one who seemed difficult, ungrateful, or guarded in front of an audience that could end careers overnight. It was an industry secret that spawned the infamous phrase, "Nobody says no to Oprah." This was the trap Toni Braxton walked into. She went on Oprah's show expecting a supportive conversation about financial hardship with a woman she'd admired her entire life. Braxton was already in a vulnerable position, openly admitting she was broke years before meeting Oprah. But when the interview began, it quickly turned into an interrogation, one that felt less like a conversation and more like a humiliation ritual in front of millions.
She was so freaking mean to me. I was in shock. Do you take responsibility for the situation that you're in right now? 100%. 100%? 100%. I couldn't believe it because I loved her so much. I admired her and looked up to her. And she pretty much reprimanded me. You're okay, E broke?
Broke.
Like broke?
Like, no money.
No money. Like net worth what?
Negative.
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 And immediately, she made me feel this big. This big. That moment completely changed my career. It made people look down on me.
Braxton's lowest point had just been turned into a punchline in front of millions. She says this experience still haunts her today, permanently affecting her ability to trust, open up, and feel safe being vulnerable in public. One of Oprah's methods in all of this was confrontation, ambushing guests with the thing they were most afraid to talk about. That was just great business for her show, as people loved the drama. And so maybe that's why she felt entitled to ambush the young actress Mary-Kate, who was 17 at the time, about rumors of her eating disorder.
I know there's a new rumor that's recently surfaced, has really upset you, right? You know, the one about eating.
Yeah, you know, people are gonna write what they want to write.
What size are you, by the way?
Size?
Yeah, I always
I'm really short.
You're not sure?
Girls, and you know.
That's so interesting.
Or why Oprah felt entitled to police which words Raven-Symoné could use about her own identity.
I'm an American. I'm not an African American. I'm an American.
Oh, girl, don't set
get
up
you
the
started.
Twitter on fire.
I'm sorry. I mean,
What? What did you just say? Stop the tape right now.
I don't know how far back, and I don't know what country in Africa I'm from, but I do know that my roots are in Louisiana. I'm an American, and that's a colorless person, because we're all people. I have lots of things running through my veins.
I mean, you're gonna get a lot of flack for saying you're not African American. You know that, right? So I want you to say what you really mean by that.
What I really mean by that is I'm an American. That's what I really mean.
Another one of her methods was compassion, turning the show into a performance of safety so people would lower their guard and expose the most private, painful parts of themselves. That was one of her gifts, making intrusion look like care and exploitation look like empathy. Just look at how she treats Kelsey Grammer, a man scarred by brutal family tragedy, pushed not just to remember his pain, but to relive it for the camera.
My sister died 2 years.
You say my sister died. Your sister was brutally and murdered, which is a little different than just dying. You still miss her, I can see. Do you ever get over it?
No.
But Oprah's brand didn't only extract value from guests on her own show. It did something even more ambitious. It incubated entirely new franchises from dangerous people. Because that's exactly what businesses do when they find a profitable formula. They scale it and build subsidiaries. And it's in these profitable decisions that Oprah built an empire far beyond the name and person itself. Take Dr. Oz, a surgeon who Oprah platformed over 60 times before spinning him off into his own show, produced by her company. Within a few years, he'd gone from legitimate medical advice to promoting miracle weight loss supplements on air, products so dubious he was hauled in front of a Senate hearing and publicly grilled for misleading millions of consumers. But at least Oz had medical credentials and wasn't a clear-cut villain. The next person Oprah endorsed had nothing at all. This video is sponsored by Abacus AI. One thing that's happening right now with AI is that it's starting to fragment. Every model is good at something different. One is better for writing, another for research, another for coding, another for images. And suddenly you're switching between tools constantly, trying to figure out which one to use. And that's kind of the problem, which is why I want to tell you about Abacus AI, as they bring all of that into one place. When you go to abacus.ai, you get access to the major models: ChatGPT 5.4, Gemini 3.1, 4.1 Pro, Claude Opus 4.6, Grok 4.1, DeepSeek, all inside a digital platform. But more importantly, it has something called Root LLM, which automatically selects the best model depending on what you're trying to do. So instead of guessing which AI to use, it just routes your prompt to the one that performs best, and it goes beyond text. You can generate images with tools like NanoBanana 2 and Flux, create AI videos with Sora 2 and Kling 3.0, build full research-backed presentations, or even use their Abacus AI agent to create entire apps, websites, or workflows from scratch. So instead of juggling 5 different platforms, everything sits in one place and actually works together. And considering it's about $10 a month, it ends up being a lot simpler and cheaper than paying for everything else separately. So if you want to try, go to abacus.ai or click the link in the description and pin comment below. John of God was one of the biggest cons in modern history. A self-proclaimed Brazilian faith healer who claimed he could cure serious illness through nothing more than divine power and spiritual intervention. Over time, he built a devoted following in Brazil where sick patients would line up for days hoping to be miraculously cured. But he had no medical training, no qualifications, and his methods had been debunked by medical experts around the world. In fact, at the time, there were countless stories of people who spent their life savings traveling to Brazil to meet him, only to then return home no better than when they left.
Looking back now, Glenys, how do you describe that journey to Brazil to see John of God?
When I saw him, he just went zoom, 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 and that was it.
Did you ever go back?
No, decided not to go because I didn't feel any effect whatsoever.
How did that leave you? Were you...
Disappointed. Wow. Of course you are disappointed. You hope to be able to walk and get better.
Needless to say, any reasonable person would see this for what it is, a grift designed to sell false hope to sick and desperate people, all while exploiting their vulnerability for financial gain. But surprisingly, not Oprah. She quickly picked up the story, featuring him in her magazine and devoting several episodes of her show to praising his work and claiming his powers could genuinely save lives. There are blog posts on her website dedicated to him, which have now been deleted, presumably because of what happened next. She flew out to meet him in person and documented the case of Lisa Melman, a woman who had abandoned conventional cancer treatment in favor of John of God's supposed healing powers. And on Oprah's stage, Melman claimed something remarkable, that her breast cancer was now gone and that John had cured her. There was evidence of this discussion on YouTube, but it's all been since scrubbed by Oprah's team. That's because the reality was just far more tragic, because just 2 years later, Lisa Melman died. Her cancer had never been cured at all, and according to reports, after she abandoned conventional treatment, the disease continued to spread and progressively worsened. So by the time she died, she was going to be in agonizing pain, and Oprah never returned to television to tell that part of the story. This happened while Oprah prolifically promoted the benefits of breast cancer screening when that virtue needed to be signaled. But by then, the damage had been done. She had already endorsed John of God to an international audience as a man capable of miracles. From there, John of God's business exploded, with an estimated 15 million people traveling from across the world to meet him. But for many of the women who entered his orbit, that journey didn't end in healing, it ended in sexual abuse. A subtext that exploded into public view in 2018 when more than 600 women, including John's own daughter, came forward accusing him of sexual abuse.
John of God was declared a fugitive on Saturday after missing a deadline to surrender to the authorities. Claims against him began earlier this month when a dozen women said the self-styled spiritual healer had abused them at his clinic. Since then, scores have poured in from women within Brazil and abroad. Faria became internationally famous when he appeared on a show hosted by Oprah Winfrey. His fame had been boosted by supposedly miraculous surgeries.
And this is where Oprah's role becomes impossible to ignore. If she had done her due diligence before legitimizing John of God on her show, she may have picked up on allegations that had followed him throughout his career. The quiet murmur that this so-called healer was in fact not who he seemed on more than one level. So while we can't know exactly how many women Oprah helped steer into a circle, it's difficult to deny that her endorsement played a significant role in widening that pipeline. After all, she never seriously challenged his claim, she never pressed him on evidence, and never really subjected him to the kind of scrutiny any responsible interviewer would have applied. What makes this even harder to excuse is that Oprah, by her own account, understood exactly how predators operate. She's spoken publicly about being molested as a child. She even said this to a room full of people who had suffered abuse, showing them that she had inside knowledge of how people are groomed.
the attention and the seduction from the predator, it feels good. I mean, if you're 7 years old and someone is stroking your penis, it feels good. Even though you don't have a name for what that is, it feels good. And I have said for years, if the abuser is any good, you won't even know it's happened. You will be in it and you won't even know it's happened. And if the abuser is any good, he or she is going to make you feel like you're a part of it.
And John of God wasn't even the only dangerous franchise Oprah helped build. Dr. Phil was a trial consultant, someone who helped people win high-stakes legal battles. He also worked on jury selection, analyzing jurors' behaviors so lawyers could decide who to keep and who to remove. Oprah brought him onto her show, where he quickly became a regular, and that made perfect sense, not because he was a good therapist, but because he was the perfect brand extension. Oprah had already built a format around emotional confession, family conflict, trauma, and personal accountability. Dr. Phil added the appearance of professional authority. Positioned as a trained psychologist, he gave Oprah's worldview a veneer of expertise, and it made the show feel less like messy, highly personal television and more like guidance. The advice they gave often included sending struggling teenagers to residential treatment programs like Turnabout Ranch, a Utah facility marketed as rehabilitation but surrounded for years by allegations of abuse, including sexual, physical, and psychological harm. In a lawsuit, a former Dr. Phil guest alleged she was sexually assaulted by a staff member at 17. She further claimed that after reporting the incident, she was punished rather than protected, and when she returned to the ranch, she was forced to work in freezing conditions and made to sleep on a wooden plank and subjected to additional degrading treatment.
Needed help are now suing the Utah teen treatment centers that they were sent to, claiming that they faced isolation, humiliation, and abuse.
A lot of trauma, including previous assaults,
various forms of self-harm. You're actually just isolated in a room.
That's the big thing, was isolation.
Publicly humiliated in front of the group by the therapist.
And they would all just shame me.
In the lawsuit, she claims she was 17 when an employee took advantage of that isolation to groom her for sexual encounters.
They would encourage the girls to literally bully me and just tell me about how horrible I am.
The lawsuit says Vista therapists shamed victims of sexual assault and forced them to talk about the specifics in group sessions.
Perhaps the most high-profile teenager sent there was Daniela Brigoli, who later described the place in brutal terms.
They just take them, they handcuff them, they put them in the car. It's basically like kidnapping. What? So for the first 3 days you're there, is no showering. They put you in a circle, which is it's a teepee. It's a little teepee, but it's open. And you have to sit there for 3 days. They wouldn't let me lay down for nothing. Like, I was falling asleep and they were like, get up, get up. This place is all about taking away privileges. Like, okay, yeah, the phone is a privilege, TV, like all that. But they take away like necessity privileges, like sleeping on a bed, eating good food, not being cold.
Oprah's production company created Dr. Phil. It funded his show and profited from it. And when that show sent children into facilities where they were allegedly abused, she was insulated because Dr. Phil was his own name, his own show, and it was his own problem. This is the model that modern celebrity empires run on. The name at the top gets the goodwill, but the structures underneath absorb the damage. Oprah would repeatedly descend on a cause, make a grand gesture, and let the cameras capture every moment before moving on to the next project. This was exactly what happened in 2007 when Oprah opened the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa. She poured $40 million into the campus for 152 disadvantaged girls. She hand-selected them herself and put on a huge launch party attended by top-ranking celebrities. On the face of it, supporting girls from poor backgrounds with education appears to be a good thing, but it came to light that the school contained a beauty salon, a yoga studio, 2 theaters, and luxury dormitories. Every tile, door handle, and finish was Oprah's particular choice, including pillowcases bearing an embroidered O. While it's her money to spend, critics immediately pointed out the obvious. That same $40 million spread differently could have helped thousands of students across the country. But instead, Oprah built a monument, something needlessly indulgent that she could put her name on and point as proof of her moral superiority. Howard Stern of all people described it well, saying,
"No, I am fascinated by Oprah, but sometimes she's unaware of the sort of ways she shows her wealth.
Okay, yes.
But I think in the world right now, There is such a disparity between those who have and those who have not.
Right.
And only getting worse.
And the way Oprah talked about it told you everything. She called herself Mama Bear to these girls, a name which becomes grim when you realize that their actual mothers were describing the school as more of a prison, while others went even further and called it an outright abduction. The mothers report being forced to wait an hour and a half through security, then permitted just 2 hours with their own children before being turned away at the gate. But what made this whole situation even worse was the fact that in 2007, a dormitory matron was charged with assault, indecent assault, and soliciting underage girls, and at least 7 victims came forward. Oprah's response? She fired the staff, tightened the rules, and restricted access to the girls even further. Which isn't exactly a great look for a woman whose relationship with abusive men was already raising questions around this time, because Oprah's connection to Harvey Weinstein has never been fully explained. For years, they were visibly close, photographed together at events, linked professionally through his distribution of The Butler, and seen socializing within the same elite circles. And when the allegations broke, one of Weinstein's accusers, a British actress named Kellyanne Noble, described how seeing Oprah with Weinstein at a BAFTA after party had made her trust him. She later alleged that Weinstein used promises of career advancement to lure her to his hotel room in Cannes, where he sexually assaulted her. After more than 60 women came forward, Oprah called out his behavior, but she was notoriously slow in doing so. She also used language designed to move the conversation away from Weinstein himself, saying, "If we make this just about Harvey Weinstein, then we will have lost this moment." According to TMZ, Weinstein told his team that Oprah had called to offer support after the allegations broke. Oprah's spokesperson denied she had contacted him directly, but acknowledged she would have been open to interviewing him. Seal was one of the very few to break ranks on Oprah's relationship with Weinstein, posting a photo of her kissing Harvey Weinstein's cheek with the caption, "When you have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you are the solution." But he then walked it back days later, clarifying he had enormous respect for Oprah and that the post was about Hollywood's hypocrisy and not her specifically. But it turned out not to be an isolated case, as behind the scenes something else was emerging, an even more damaging pattern of behavior around a different powerful man. In 2019, Oprah signed on as an executive producer of a documentary called On the Record, a film centered on the sexual assault allegations against hip-hop mogul Russell Simons. It featured interviews with several of the more than 20 women who had accused him. It was set to premiere at Sundance and stream on Apple TV Plus as part of Oprah's content deal. But just days before the premiere, Oprah abruptly pulled out. She cited creative differences and claimed there were inconsistencies in some of the women's stories. Her withdrawal also killed the Apple TV Plus distribution deal, leaving the filmmakers scrambling for a new platform. Three of Simons' accusers then appeared on CBS This Morning in the aftermath, and the segment was introduced by Oprah's close friend Gayle King, who suggested the allegations needed to be put in the context of the times, which seemed to be the antithesis of Oprah's own principles.
Nothing can be further from the case. She was very upset with, she thought that the documentary needed to breathe a little more. She thought it was important that it be put in context for the times. Because, you know, these allegations were many years ago, and now we're here in 2020. Put it in context of the times of what was going on there.
One of the accusers, Alexia Norton-Jones, said she was in shock and felt that Oprah had built her brand on her story of being abused and yet abandoned them at the moment it mattered most. Rose McGowan, one of the most outspoken voices around Hollywood abuse, put it in the bluntest possible terms, as she wrote, "I'm glad more are seeing the ugly truth of Oprah. I wish she were real, but she isn't. From being pals with Weinstein to abandoning and destroying Russell Simons' victims, she is about supporting a sick power structure for personal gain. She is as fake as they come." In other words, Oprah mastered the ability to make power feel kind, mastering the performance of care while using it to protect power. All of this behavior leaves you questioning how Oprah was ever considered trustworthy in the first place, especially as a huge part of her image was her backstory. She presented herself as a poor girl from rural Mississippi, a child so deprived she claimed cockroaches were her pets. No nice clothes, no comfort, no stability. That story allowed her audience to see themselves in her. They believed her story was their story, and unlike the polished presenters of the time, it made Oprah feel authentic, self-made. But her family tells a very different story. They actually describe Oprah as having a spoiled, comfortable childhood. After a controversial biography written about Oprah, her cousin even claims to have confronted her about these lies, with Oprah reportedly replying, "That's what people want to hear. The truth is boring." That single line reveals the moment a person made a conscious decision to become a product. Her cousin said, quote, "No one in the family believes her stories. families. But now that she's so rich and powerful, everyone is afraid to contradict her. Vernon Winfrey, a stepfather who reportedly helped raise Oprah, is quoted as saying, "She may be admired by the world, but I know the truth." And so this is what made what happened in Maui so damning. Because for the first time, both sides of the Oprah duality were exposed in the same event. The person and the business standing in the same frame, impossible to separate. But to understand why this controversy landed so badly, you first have to understand the damage Oprah had already done to Native Hawaiian families long before the disaster struck. It started, as these things so often do with Oprah, with a story designed to make her look amazing in every sense of the word. Her personal trainer had spotted a beautiful stretch of land on Maui and feared a developer would snap it up and ruin it. So Oprah bought it herself, presenting it not as a personal acquisition, but as an act of protection. But then she bought more and more until quietly over the course of years, Oprah Winfrey had amassed more than 1,000 acres in one of the most land-scarce communities in the United States. It was bought up privately, fenced off, and sealed off from the community it was taken from, serving no purpose beyond expanding the private empire of a billionaire. And as her land acquisitions grew, the consequences rippled outward in ways that were hard to ignore. Housing costs soared beyond what many local families could even afford. Native Hawaiians whose families had lived on that land for generations were priced out of it entirely. Money flowed into private estates, while the wider community was left with failing roads, stretched utilities, and weaker public infrastructure. And slowly, without one single dramatic moment, a place that once belonged to its people became part of Oprah's portfolio. And this is what made what happened next so damning. On August 8th of 2023, wildfires tore through Maui. More than 2,200 buildings were destroyed, over 100 people were killed, and it became the deadliest wildfire in the United States in more than a century. In the weeks that followed, Oprah and Dwayne Johnson stepped in front of cameras to announce the People's Fund of Maui. They each pledged $5 million and then asked the American public to donate alongside them. A gesture that does sound generous until you do the maths. At the time, Oprah's net worth was over $2.5 billion. So, while $5 million sounds like a lot, in reality, it was less than 0.2% of her wealth. And this image of two billionaires giving what was essentially pocket change, then asking hardworking, struggling Americans to cover the rest, left a sour taste in many people's mouths. But what made people much angrier was the way Oprah structured the fund. Donations didn't go directly to the victims themselves. Instead, they were funneled through the Entertainment Industry Foundation, an organization that helps celebrities turn charity into good press. Meaning part of every dollar donated was not just going towards relief, but towards the machinery that helps protect the image of elites like Oprah. Moreover, for the few victims who did receive the money from the fund, they were given nowhere near enough to actually rebuild their lives. That's because, due in part to people like Oprah driving up prices for locals, Maui has become one of the most expensive places to live in the United States. The fund was reportedly able to cover only around a quarter of what survivors needed to survive, let alone rebuild a home, restart a business, or even replace a lifetime of possessions. People were outraged because yet again it was another example of Oprah grabbing the story for herself, while the people she claimed to be helping never got the help they actually needed. Others went even further, pointing out that the wildfires have historically been land grab opportunities for the rich. Once a place is destroyed, property values collapse, and when that happens, wealthy outsiders typically move in to buy the land for a fraction of what it was once worth. For these reasons, many of Oprah's longtime fans have started turning on her, with comments beneath her fundraiser video calling out the blatant hypocrisy. One person wrote, "Let some homeless families stay in one of your mansions you're not using and donate your own cash, Oprah." And Joe Rogan sums it up perfectly here.
And she's up there talking about income inequality. Like, hey, lady.
Yeah, I know.
You're rich as we have to remember what this lady has done.
She has to be held accountable.
But unlike The Rock, who at least made some semblance of an effort to address this, Oprah refused to take any real accountability for the situation. Instead, she cast herself as the victim, describing the reaction as
onslaught of being terrorized and vilified online.
Saying the backlash consisted purely of
slander and
attacks, lies, conspiracy theories.
And rather than engage with the actual criticism, Oprah proved the point perfectly. Because this is how billionaires so often process public anger, not as a moment to stop and think, but as people beneath them lashing out. When she brushed off the backlash, she wasn't reflecting on why so many ordinary people felt uncomfortable watching two billionaires ask the public for money. She was showing you in her own words that she saw that backlash not as something worth listening to, but as an attack from people she does not truly see as equal to her. When ordinary people criticize the image of a billionaire asking hard-working people for money, Oprah didn't hear a moral objection, she heard hate. Ultimately, there's a long-standing pattern here that has become obvious. The sheer number of scandals, predators, frauds, and grotesque misjudgments around her is striking. Her career sends a message that in Hollywood, almost anything can be absorbed, softened, and survived, so long as you have enough fame and influence to rise above it. According to her family and other celebrities she's worked with, the persona she built her empire on is just complete fiction. And this means that for the first time in 40 years, the story unfolding is one that Oprah can no longer control. Which is so satisfying, as she's exactly the kind of figure our modern society has come to reward, an elitist moralizer who speaks beautifully about pain while profiting the most from the people and systems that cause it. Because when a morally bankrupt billionaire like Oprah is seen as the sweetest person in the room, you start to realize the problem is bigger than just her. It's a culture that lets money and power dictate who and what we as a society consider moral. And Oprah didn't just benefit from that culture, she perfected it.
Wow. Oprah, you monster, dirty down. I'm just playing. I don't know that lady. But listening to these videos and these stories, she is a monster, bro. That's a pretty long video, you guys. I gotta get ready for my 9-to-5 job. So make sure y'all comment, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, peace and love.